Hello everyone. Today we are working on an E61 N54 Wagon. Recently I went to go shut the car off and heard a pretty cacophonous noise from the engine bay. What I thought it was originally was the water pump. It has a very distinct sound, but after you pop the hood and take a look at the engine bay, the sound was obviously coming from the radiator fan. You could actually see bits and pieces of plastic making its way out of there. You can actually see in this video here where those cracks lie. I think in total there was probably about 2 or 3 cracks surrounding the radiator fan. I'm not entirely sure what caused the cracks that we see. This is a 2008 and it's got about 120,000 miles, so it could just be old age and the heat cycling of the plastic. But unfortunately this isn't a very cheap part to replace. If you just scout around for prices, you'll probably see that it's running at about $700. I think I was able to scoop mine up for about $500. I'll list some part numbers that might help you in your search of finding better prices, but I'll list the OEM number as well as the aftermarket part number. Do be mindful that when you are scouting for parts on this, whether it's used or new, on the N54 E61 wagon specifically, there's 2 inlets for an inlet and an outlet for the oil cooler on both the top left and right of the radiator fan, and I think that's what makes this such a pricey piece, just based off of the uniqueness. All in all, the job probably took about an hour and a half, and we definitely were taking our time through it. So with that said, sit back and I'll try to walk through some of the steps that we took to pull this part out and replace it. You'll want to start with the car lifted on the front end and the hood open, and you're going to remove a total of 10 torque screws that I believe were T27s. You'll also need to remove the 4 screws holding the 2 hood latches on. You'll definitely need that off in order to get the cover out of the way. And don't forget to unclip the hood latch cable from the cover. Now just taking a look from the top, you'll see me pointing out a few of the screw holes where those torque screws sit. But additionally, you'll also see that there's only 5 more torque screws holding on the radiator cover from the top, as well as the coolant line just being clipped on there as well. Now what you're about to see next is what makes this particular radiator fan so unique. There's the oil cooler lines on both the top left and the top right that will need to be removed. It's held in with a single Allen bolt on either side, but additionally there's going to be 1 more screw holding in this AC line. I'll give it a little wiggle here so that hopefully you can see it, but you'll get another angle later as well. From the bottom, the skid tray is going to have to come off. I think this depends on what sort of bumper you have, but for me it was 5 screws in the front and then 4 across the back panels of the skid tray. Just be mindful that there's probably water and dirt here, so if you've got some glasses for PPE, go ahead and put those on before you get in there. Now the bottom side view of that 1 single screw, that's a bit of a pain in the butt to get to. You'll need a 1/4 inch socket wrench to get in there, and I believe this was a T27, but right there you can see it come into focus, and you'll want to tackle that particular bolt. That'll free it up, and then there's a clip at the bottom of that as well that'll need to get freed up. You'll see me here removing the oil cooler lines from the radiator fan. Do try to keep a cup or some towels handy because this is going to leak a bit. As soon as you pull it out, you can cover the hole and prevent most of the leakage, but you'll also want to keep this tucked up and out of the way to prevent it from draining more than you want. And it was pretty quick in this clip, but you'll also want to remove the electrical connector as well. With the torque screws out and the oil cooler lines disconnected, you should be able to give it a bit of a wiggle test to see what's hanging up on it. And from there, it's just a matter of finagling everything out of the way so that you can slide it up. Now the fan assembly that I purchased didn't also include the oil cooler, so we're going to be pulling that one off and placing it onto the new fan. Now with the oil cooler swapped over to the new fan, you should be able to just drop this right into place and install it just as easy as you removed it. In my case, I forgot to plan for this, but the oil cooler lines have two pretty girthy O-rings that sit on them. I didn't have anything to replace them on hand, so I went ahead and reused the original ones and have plans to order 2 new ones to replace them at some point as well. In my case, I drained about 3/4 of a quart of oil, so just be mindful that when you remove the oil, you'll have to replace it as well. Now when you're working through the radiator cover, remember that there's 5 total torque screws, and the coolant line is going to want to drop into the clips at the back end of the cover. Now when you go to replace the metal secondary cover that also contains the hood latch, go ahead and install the hood release cables first, and then loosely tighten the torque screws that sit on the hood latch. That way you can adjust the hood latch as needed to make sure that the hood closes properly. After you've done that, you've pretty much wrapped up the job, and hopefully this was helpful. If it was, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe, because there's definitely a lot more work this E61's going to see.